He runs a business outside of the bricklaying business for his uncle, with his uncle. He's been taught to lead. He's been taught to learn about masculinity. He's been taught to have a purpose. He's been taught about discipline. He's been taught about what it's like to be around men. Well, we're here at the beautiful Nelson Bay Marina, and I want to talk about covert emotional incest and infantilism. Now, this is what these single mothers don't understand. When the masculine DNA is removed from the family environment, the children, the young men, are left to the guidance of the feminine DNA. What that does is blindside them to understanding the abrasiveness of masculinity. Now, some women, as they get older, they do become masculine. They can become masculine in their bitternesses and upsets and problems that they develop from not wanting to receive good counsel from men. They isolate themselves from any wisdom that comes in a masculine form, and they deprive their young sons of knowing and understanding how masculinity works, what is repulsive to it, why men can be agitated at things that women aren't. There's some fish in there, but I don't think I can. No, the reflection's too good. What the tolerance of men are, what the characteristics of men are. And you'll find that these people, these young men, appoint themselves to be the protectors of their mother, and in some cases that works, in other cases it don't, because the mother is where she is because of decisions. In cases, men let them down, but you've got to ask yourself, how did the woman get mixed up with that man in the first place? Women will make wrong choices. Most women today are surrounded by good men, but they choose the bad men because it's more attractive, only to live with the consequences of that. But do they learn from that? Well, in most cases, I'm sorry, but I have to say no. Most women don't learn from these mistakes, and they do it over and over again, only to find themselves more alone, more damaged, and the ripple effect of that washes over onto their children. We live in an age of hypersensitivity where the integral attributes of masculinity are gone, all but gone. Where masculinity's been undermined, and femininity's put itself on a pedestal in such a way that it doesn't think it needs masculinity at all, only until loneliness kicks in, and then usually the choices that are made in response to that are wrong. That's why so many women are alone. They haven't learned anything from their mistakes, and they very well should have. But hypergamy, in used wrong, can put women in places they wouldn't even dream of. And the consequences of that can be dire. I know women that have come out of relatively good relationships to end up with men, and men have robbed them and left them in debt for tens of thousands of dollars. Debt. Because they haven't learned what wisdom is. They haven't learned what integrity is. They just keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. They sit there on their own again, trying to work out, well, how did that happen? Why did that happen to me? Because good men come along, they perform intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, physically, sexually. Flawless men. Most of those men are usually taken. But some women get a second chance and a good man will come along. And creation's got a way of showing people that we're not designed to swap and change. We're just not designed to do that. And it's always consequential when we try and live a life negligent of who we mix with. Now, time and time again, I've seen young men with infantile personalities and character who have been raised by single mums. They look big, they've got all the stuff, they've got the tattoos, they've got this and that. But if you dig deep enough and you get close enough, you soon find that there's a great mass of masculinity that hasn't been formed in their frame. And you can bring it to their attention and rustle feathers and cause all sorts of discomfort. But later they'll thank you for showing them that there is a part of their life that they're missing out on, because there wasn't a male role model that was good enough or worthy enough or behaving well enough or displaying themselves in a way in which they would teach these young men anything positive. You see, there's no initiation anymore for young men. They just do what they got to do with what they know, and that's all there is to it. The abrasiveness of and discipline of masculinity and everything is gone. It's not accepted in the Western world anyway. They don't want to know about it. I just come out of a relationship where two young boys said, we don't like middle-aged men. Well, if that ain't blindsiding yourself and setting yourself up for disaster, I don't know what is. We don't like middle-aged men. Well, good for you. I learnt most of the stuff in my life that I know from middle-aged men. So there's a great void where young men are so attached to their mothers that their masculine frame is fragmented. And they run around protecting women from something that most things that don't even exist. But the poor mothers buy into it, and they're blindsided by their children. These young men that think they know everything but haven't got a clue about themselves, let alone anybody else. They don't know what aggravation is, they don't know what torment is in terms of their behaviour. Oh, but they know about everybody else and what they're doing wrong. This is the type of mentality that gets into these young boys. They recluse, they are passive. A lot of them end up in jail. A lot of them end up with all kinds of masturbation and porn issues, drugs. They take drugs. Alcohol's a form of relief, but only causes more problems. What you'll find is for most of their problems that they try and solve, they only make them worse because the masculine factor in their frame is fragmented and dysfunctional. And this is always a result, usually, of covert emotional incest, where they've attached to their mother in such a way in which they can't even maintain a relationship with a girl because they're too attached to their mother. I know many women that have ended up with mummy's boys and lived miserable, horrible lives whilst trying to do it. You have to be on guard against these things. Spoiled women that would spoil children. You have to be on guard against these things. Daddy's girl, daddy's angel. But when she gets out in the real world, she's nothing less than a nightmare. Or similar to something out of a horror movie. So these are the hidden things inside people today in our communities that we've got to be aware of. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a situation where I was involved with hundreds and hundreds of men. Positive, negative, up, down, round and round. I got to learn what it was all about fast. And the first thing I learnt was alcohol and drugs don't work. You have to have all the faculties of your mind to understand how to navigate your way through the unpredictables of life. Chaos is predictable, but in what form it's going to present itself, we don't know, but it's definitely predictable. Chaos will present itself. There's no doubt about that. But chaos in the form of covert emotional incest in the heart and mind of the adult and the child is a monster all of its own. And it's a monster that needs to be exposed and taught about, because people are ending up in relationships with these people. They're investing into these people only to be sabotaged, and through the infantileness of the covert emotional incest. Covert emotional incest will always take the infantile solution. You have to understand that. It will always take the infantile solution because it doesn't want to stop. It will not let go. These people will not let go of their bond. Oh, they'll drag strangers in to their lives. They'll bring the strangers into their lives. But once the covert emotional incest exposes itself, then the poor old stranger that's come along looking for love ends up being pushed to the side. Now it's up to that person then, if they can recognize what's going on. Your head will swim. Something will be saying inside you, something's not right here. Something will be, you'll confront your partner and go, aren't you a little, do they realize what they're doing? You'll say, aren't you spellbound by your mother, or aren't you spellbound by your son? I've seen all of this. And really, I think I've come to the conclusion that it's not anybody's right to interfere. You just end up in these situations and you have to either put up with it or get out of it. It's as simple as that. You're never going to change it. Covert emotional incest cannot be changed. It won't change for anyone, because it's formed. It's a formation of character. It's a formation of a dynamic welded into the mind of the people that are doing it. That's how covert emotional incest works. Once it's formed, it's in infantileness, See, have you ever heard anybody say that covert emotional incest is directly connected to infantileness, to infancy? because, because it stops the maturity. There's a lack of maturity in the people that are demonstrating it. You'll see it every time. You cannot get through to people that are in covert emotional incest. You might at the start, but once it manifests itself, you can kiss any sense of reason goodbye, because covert emotional incest goes past maternal bonds into dysfunctional enmeshment, and it blots out everything. It just blots out all sense of reason. That's how covert emotional incest works. It's horrible, it's diabolical, it's fierce, and it's relentless. It's stubborn and blind. And that's how covert emotional incest works, through its infantileness. It's all based on immaturity. It's all based on an unwillingness to resolve. That's how covert emotional incest can work. Have you ever tried to deal? You might be a woman that was married to a mummy's boy, a man, body, but the mentality of a boy. Once, behind closed doors, you don't see it manifest until you get behind closed doors, and then you see all sorts of immature atrocities, emotional atrocities. That's what covert emotional incest does. It causes terrible atrocities that people don't deserve. They come along to be loved, and the next thing, they're on the end of these immature atrocities that are taking place between parents and children that were never meant to be formed. These are parts, just a few snippets of how covert emotional incest works. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Bye for now.